The Cave of the Crystals in Mexico, deep within the Naka mine in Chihuahua, Mexico, lies a remarkable discovery. A cave filled with towering crystals of selenite, some over 10 meters long and weighing 55 tons. This wondrous place has become known as the Cave of the Crystals, or La Cueva de los Cristales, but long before modern scientists set foot inside this geode. Indigenous peoples whispered stories and legends about a cave filled with giant crystals that had strange, even mystical powers. The native tribes of northern Mexico, including the Pacuim, Tarahumara, and Apache, shared tales across generations about fearsome creatures and events linked to massive crystals hidden beneath the Sierra Naka mountain range. According to legend, these colossal crystals were sacred embodiments of gods and spirits, both benevolent and malevolent. Their subsurface realm was spoken of as a crossroads of the natural and supernatural worlds. One myth describes the cave as the lair of Itzpapalot, a shape-shifting goddess of the night and darkness. Known as the obsidian butterfly, she was said to take the form of a terrible creature with large crystal wings that glinted razor-sharp in even the faintest light. From her subterranean throne room, Itzpapalot would send out bat-like creatures into the night to harvest souls and blood for her sustenance. Only the ritual sacrifice of young men and women could satiate her dark hunger. If not appeased, she would fly into a murderous rage and trigger volcanic eruptions, thunderstorms, and other disasters. The massive crystals of her cave were thought to amplify her mystical powers. When the native peoples saw fires and lightning on the horizon, they knew Itzpapalot was angry and on the prowl. Parents would warn children to hide safely inside, or the obsidian butterfly would carry them off forever in her crystal wings. In other folk tales passed between tribal elders and medicine men, the Cave of Crystals features as a mystical healing site of great power. According to these shamanic legends, the colossal selenite sentinels give off a singular energy with strange curative effects. Tales tell of chronically sick, injured, or elderly tribe members miraculously emerging from the cave, walking, seeing clearly, even completely cured of life-threatening diseases. After supposedly bathing in the crystal's radiance, the infirm are said to have touched the formations and been healed. However, these legends also warn that the crystal's intense vibrations can overwhelm those not spiritually prepared. There are chilling tales of warriors and hunters wandering into the geode, never to be seen again. Others reportedly perished from sudden organ failure or wasting maladies after exposure to the cave's powerful aura. Survivors spoke of hearing disembodied voices and screams echoing through the space. A few returned mute, stripped of their sanity or suffering permanent memory loss from contact with the crystals. According to legend, only meditating shamans could harness the cavern's medicinal effects and commune with its mineral guardians, but they paid a heavy physical toll. The story goes that the Crystal Cave's original discoverers were an order of shamans whose obsession with the selenite's rumored transcendent qualities ultimately proved lethal. They believed visions revealed by the glittering giants and messages channeled through them would give insight into impending threats, reveal future events, and unlock the keys to healing grave illnesses. It's said these shamans held sacred rituals inside the Cave of Crystals for days on end without food, water, or sleep. They would meditate with the clusters, humming at harmonics they believed resonated with the very vibration of creation itself. But over years of exposure, the vibrations slowly shattered the shamans' bodies. Their bones became brittle, their organs misshapen. No remedy helped increasingly agonizing joint and nerve pain. Madness set in as well, with accounts of the elder shamans ranting crazed prophecies. Ultimately, the order died off, killed by the same source they believed was divine. They saw the sacrifice as necessary to intercede for their people's future. No records remain about what insights the shamans may have gleaned from the Crystal Cavern, or what, if any, cures they dispensed during their tenure as healers. But the stories suggest they paid the ultimate price through prolonged contact with the crystals. However, their legends lived on and warnings endured about the cave's blessing and danger. All conveyed a shared sense that more than mere minerals shaped those shining pillars the size of forest trees. Indeed, entering the Cave of Crystals today, in the modern age of technology and reason, one still senses an otherworldliness that defies easy explanation. The science is astonishing, but perhaps not enough to fully account for feelings of insignificance, even in these caves. Crystalline Cathedral. It remains tantalizing to imagine what unseen forces or long-silenced wisdom the shamans might have discovered emanating from the vibrating selenite centuries. Modern geology suggests the giant crystals grew to epic proportions due to a peculiar confluence of mineral-rich liquids and gases percolating through the cave system millions of years ago. A magma chamber sitting below the cave likely created hydrothermal fluids saturated with minerals including silica, sulfides, and quartz. This piping hot liquid dissolved cavities in the bedrock, forming geodes. The Earth's internal heat and corresponding pressure created a womb effect, causing some geodes to swell large enough to walk through. For millennia, this served as the ultimate nursery environment for baby crystal creation. The minerals still lining the rocks slowly crystallized around itself, self-seeding and precipitating into solid selenite structures. Trapped in the void, some embryonic crystals expanded and touched for 500,000 years, exceeding the dimension of telephone poles. Given ideal growing conditions, no end size limit apparently exists for selenite crystals originating from hydrothermal vents. The process likely halted between 58,000 to 112,000 years ago, when falling mineral saturation in the area precipitously reduced new crystal growth. The magma chamber also lost oomph, generating less heat. This in turn lowered internal temperatures in the watery cavern wombs closer to the current 59F to 136F range, still hot, but far less steamy than Thebabie crystal days. However, the existing crystalline titans continued enlarging at a much slower pace from ambient temperature fluctuations and chemical changes percolating hydrogen sulfide gas through the structure. So while less scalding conditions slowed new crystal creation, enough warmth and mineral content remained to allow already established specimens to keep inching wider, taller. Imagine middle-aged adults still subtly maturing rather than growing babies. Even increments over long stretches of time yielded megacrystals. This hidden process endured until human intervention pierced the natural insulation. Chihuahua miners hunting new ore deposits drilled test tunnels that fatefully busted into the Cave of Crystals in 2000. The cave lay protected for eons at 313F to 358F in a bath of magnesium and sodium-rich water, saturated enough to keep the crystals growing and staunch further decay. But once exposed, conditions inside the cavern almost immediately began changing, to the detriment of the crystals and environment. The selenite centuries started deteriorating from radical temperature and humidity shifts. So did much smaller companion formations, including nails, blades, and popcorn-shaped clusters covering most surfaces. Experts warn the cave has just years, perhaps only decades, before active crystal growth ceases forever and existing structures erode beyond recovery from radical shifts in their formerly balanced biosphere. While mechanically drilling into the cavern may seem an aggressive intrusion, native peoples likely discovered parts of the crystal caves long before modernization and mining interests unearthed them wholesale. Jesuit missionaries traversing northern Mexico in the mid-1600s recorded native tales about abundant glass formations and caves that could grow to gigantic proportions in Sierra Neca. Early Spanish explorers of the area also noted spellbinding stories among tribes about magic crystal caverns with air so hot and humid it could kill unprepared men. The Apache and Tarahumara were renowned spelunkers, guiding outsiders to their territories' caves in search of ore, refuge, or exotic curios. Tribes like the Pakwum built entire underground networks of tunnels, irrigation, and living quarters in complex cave systems near Neca. Their advanced masonry, metalsmithing, and pottery work required mining clay, ore, and minerals crucial for pigments. Water accessibility through caves aided their agriculture. So while no direct native evidence pinpoints the exact discovery timeframe for the crystal cave itself, extensive regional cave use and mining make natural puncturing of the space likely hundreds if not thousands of years pre-Columbus. This bolsters the possibility of extended legends about the selenite giants percolating as whispers between native peoples in the locality. Far from natural, the pure transparency and gigantic proportions of these crystals, understandably, struck less technological tribes as astonishing, even supernatural. The lack of artifacts found inside the cave to date also suggests deadly interior conditions repelled extensive human activity before modern ventilation, while likely inspiring to indigenous peoples upon discovery. Quick realization of the chamber's boiling heat probably barred extensive interaction or ritual use. More temperate neighboring caverns offered hospitable locations for living quarters, mining essentials, and crop growing to support communities. But the lethal crystal cave surely spawned fearful legends, even among groups pragmatically focused on survival. If native tribes accessed parts of the crystal cavern in previous centuries, it probably occurred during annual periods when subsurface water levels fell low enough inside parts of Sierra Negra to permit brief contact. Cooling surface climate could periodically combine with low rainfall, reducing cave thermal insulation enough to marginally improve interior access without modern ventilation controls. However, brief, direct encounters over generations may have allowed glimpses by ancestors who relayed extraordinary descriptions of the fabled crystal giants. The selenite structures themselves also offer visual cues supporting native interaction centuries past. Some damaged lower sections and broken crystal piles at the cave entrance indicate human activity, perhaps clandestine exploration attempts. More dramatically, an exploration team in 2013 noted an apparently man-made spike jammed into a massive fallen crystal slab along one gallery wall. The tool was carbon dated between 1021 to 1155 AD. This artifact directly overlapped the epic rise of the Pakwum civilization, flourishing in the same Chihuahua vicinity until the 1400s. Finding a miner's old pickaxe embedded in crystalline rubble implies early attempts to penetrate, harvest, or vandalize the minerals failed catastrophically given brutal interior conditions. While verification remains impossible, the relic iron shard fuels speculation that rumors of the magical crystal cave may have tantalized the Pakwum into costly, disastrous expeditions to locate and exploit the formation. This would further root the later native legends of the space as dangerous, even deadly without proper precautions. It also hints how awareness of the crystals themselves may stretch back nearly a millennium before present times. So in the absence of more artifacts, the spike offers concrete indication that ancient native peoples located parts of the crystal cavern long before modern science opened and mapped them. Carbon dating also establishes people actively sought to dig into our outcroppings in centuries past when conditions temporarily allowed, even at extreme risk. This lends credence to the age and thriller of whisperings between tribes about a magical cave of great crystals with the ability to both give and ravage life. Beyond tantalizing evidence of past native exploration, the cave itself feels innately otherworldly, even before absorbing the legends swirling around it. The piercing forms broadcast a visual power that triggers primal recognition. One stands amid the sacred. Estimates suggest growing cycles for the largest crystal giants may have started during Neanderthal epochs. Tribes and even lost civilizations may have come and gone during the long gestation of these mineral mountains. To enter such a space is to viscerally experience Einstein's assertion that the distinction between past, present, and future loses significance amid the relativistic depths of the cave of the crystals. Time itself slows upon contact with specimens dating back millennia, yet actively growing just decades ago in tightly controlled conditions. Their enormous antiquity, combined with mineral sensitivity to instantly shifting heat, water, and airflow, creates a destabilizing sensation of chronological elasticity. One stands under crystals that formed before mammals dominated the planet, yet remain somehow alive. Responsive to subterranean cues written in mineral dialects understood only by earth elements. Their sheer endurance and soundness mean broken sections on the floor may reasonably have cracked off thousands of years back, but show virtually no decay. The disorientation feeds notions one has stumbled through a stone tape wormhole back to a primordial epoch. Giant watchers hosting long memories seemingly await activation by mystical keys, perhaps intuited by ancestral shamans versed in earth energies beyond present grasp. Given breathtaking scope and strangeness of the natural features inside the crystal cave, native myths suggest imaginative attempts to explain its marvels and messaging, unable to comprehend intricate long-term geologic and chemical processes. Earlier peoples wove cautionary tales personifying the crystals as living spirits embodied in a sacred sanctuary and guardhouse, regulating passage between mortal and divine realms. The whispers of gods, watchful protectors, magical healing influences, and vengeful guardians around the precarious crystal cave conveyed intuitive dread and hope in symbolic vocabulary. They painted the glittering cavern as a lost Eden, deadly, yet filled with revelation for those brave and spiritually prepared to withstand its testing. Lair. Warnings about the soul-stripping price for wrestling revelations from the mineral giants prove prescient centuries later, as scientific teams still cannot enter the rock cave without special suits, guarding against hellish conditions, mimicking the mythic forge of Earth's molten core. Even in the modern era of logic and evidence, visceral experience in what might be called the Cathedral of Crystals compels humility and wonder in the tradition of religious spaces designed to dwarf human pretensions. Common among visitor reactions are expressions of anxiety, vertigo, and diminishment unwarranted by the splendor. The cavern's transcendent beauty radiates with a mysterious undercurrent of foreboding. One researcher described feeling caught in the force field of an alien ship, gripped by invisible energies, both wondrous and vaguely menacing. Others reported nightmares of the glittering spears crashing down or suddenly shooting skyward at impossible speed. A few witnesses refused to enter the cave again after initial exposure left them shaken by intense energy and snatches of phantom voices. Scientists lacking equipment to record or quantify ambient noise and electrical surges within the cave cannot explain auditory and sensory hallucinations reported by guests and colleagues. The phenomena remain awkward, anecdotal incidents dismissed but not forgotten. Perhaps our instruments still lack capacity to entirely measure or comprehend all forces at play inside the crystal cave, just as earlier peoples relied on symbolic tales to articulate an inexplicable power they sensed dwelling therein. In that sense, modern mythology continues to develop around the ancient space, with researchers as the new shamans called forth to divine meaning from its obscure workings and outline future survival. Beyond human engineering that birthed its wonders, then threatened its balance. If ancient tribes wove poetic metaphor about sky gods dwelling inside the selenite giants, researchers now parse chemical equations demonstrating miracle mechanics that slowly birthed the sublime through deep time. Each explanation remains not entirely sufficient. Something more eludes witnesses in granite prose, just as it confounded native tribes who left the question of where precisely the physical plane melds into realm of spirit unmarked around the forbidding crystal cave. Perhaps it is enough to simply abide in shared reverence before greatness whose essential nature escapes names. For now, the crystals endure, projecting beauty, alien symmetry, and restless dreams, as they steadily, slowly etch toward heights and perfection known only to crystals.